pick up the right short-term rental, even just one of them in your business portfolio, is monetarily life-changing, from everything from a single mom to someone who makes high six figures and wants to start creating steps to exit. I've never seen anything that can return business type revenue without the business type expenses.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to another episode of Weiss Advice. I'm your host, as always, Yona Weiss. Excited to be here this morning with Jonathan Pacilio. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the time. I'm doing fabulous. Thank you.
Well, it's good to have you on. I love having real estate investors and someone like yourself who has grown a business specifically in the short-term rental space. This is a topic we have discussed a few times on the podcast, but always good to see different perspectives. And the fact that we're seeing so many people from a corporate world, business, moving into real estate and specifically the short-term rental space really does say a lot about the space. So I'd love to learn about your journey, Jonathan, taking you from, 20 years in financial, services industry into really jumping full time into the real estate. So how did that start? I mean, did it just start with one rental? Did it scale? Or at what point did you decide, okay, I just got to switch gears?
Yeah. So my story is not unique, right? I think you hear a lot of people say I got started with one or two of these, and it's no different there. I think that the difference is, for me, I'm a little bit of an obsessive guy when I put goals in front of me or there's something that I want, right? So I had a pretty successful career with different financial institutions on Wall Street for almost 20 years. And my wife had a pretty successful career heading into, I think it's like 2018, 19. And we were doing really well. But, there was just something missing. And I think this is a typical story where people are like, look, I like the path I'm on, but I'm just feeling a little unfulfilled, or I want to make a change. I have kids now. I want to make a shift. But so that's a pretty traditional story. And it started with us picking up. We had real estate in the past, long-term rentals. But one of the issues is as I kept revisiting the financial scenarios, because really that's where it's about. Like, what is it going to take for you to leave, right? You have a plan, or you have a goal, you put a plan in place, and then you need the data, right? So how much do you need, right? We're both making healthy six-figure salaries, and we were more than willing to compromise that lifestyle to a certain extent, but maybe not as much as others, right? That's a personal question. But where the journey starts is as I kept going back to my long-term rental real estate, which we had several properties at the time, the numbers, they typically just don't make sense for a much smaller portfolio than, say, short-term rentals. And we discovered that heading into, again, I think the 2019 year. And so when we started understanding a little bit better about the vacancy risk, which is really, that's the metric you got to look at. That's where the risk is, which essentially is the monetary value in short-term rentals, right? It's not that it's a different type of home. I mean, yes, you make it classy, you make it sophisticated, it's beautiful, it's luxury, all these different things, way different business model than a long-term rental. But the difference in value of what you can make from, let's say, $1,200 or $1,500 a month, when we started realizing that dependent upon the effort and the class and the sophistication and the niceties that you could do in these short-term rentals mixed with vacancy risk, right? Which is really what you do with long-term rentals is, hey, 12-month lease, I don't have to worry. I got my $1,500 a month. But when you can go from $1,500 to $7,000, right? Same house.
Right.
Naturally, people are like, wow. And so the numbers, right back to the kind of the reasoning behind that model is, if we can make 4,500 work, 5,500 work, 7,000, you can cut, I need, maybe 42 units down to 12 or something, or whatever the numbers are, right? And I don't want to bore your audience with all of the data with ours, but I can tell you, my wife and I are very good at this business. And if you're not good at this business, you're not going to go from 1,500 to maybe a $6,800 a month. You're going to go from 1,500 to 2,600, and you're going to, and rightfully so, some people are going to say it's not worth it, and it might not be. So I'll reel that back a little bit, right? Yeah. So I think that makes a lot of sense. It started with a couple of transitional properties into, let's see what the short-term game can play out for us. And it only took us, I think, I'm going to be honest, it only took 7 high-performing short-term rentals for me to leave my career in 24 months.
So and 7.
7.
7 was the number for you.
Yeah. Now it was a mix of, and I want to go in any direction that you want to go in, but just to be clear for people, it was a mix of, and I'm big on this. I call it short-term rentals versus vacation rentals. Big difference. Short-term rentals are servicing short-term housing needs that have nothing to do with vacationers. Typically they're very underserved. And so 6 of those units were there are random cities in South Carolina near where I live. It's an underserved market. We can make them with way less competition. We make more money. And then we picked up a big cabin in Tennessee in kind of the Smoky Mountains. And that does true vacation type revenue, which is much higher, but we folded that into the mix. So literally in 24 months, I was able to very easily leave my career. And then the following 12 months, which just happened to be that this past, I think, May, we exited my wife. So I'll stop there because the path to short-term rentals was
there's a lot to unpack there. Yeah.
Very typically. Yeah. So lots to unpack. And I want to do that for you in our time frame. But that was it. So it started traditionally. We just went full bore. How do we be the best at doing this? Because I see that mistake a lot where people want to do just a little bit more than being a typical landlord. And they're very confused as to why the numbers aren't there. Right. To quit a high 6-figure salary after 4 or 5 units.
Well, and you were doing this. I mean, the units that you did acquire, those 7 units that you were able to leave, you were doing that simultaneously while working a full-time job, correct? Yeah.
And we had 2 kids. So and even my kids now, they're 5 and 2. So they're all little. It's hard. So I want to see where you're going with that because it is real. The struggle is real. The commitment's real. You're putting a lot on hold.
Yeah, meaning it's not like, okay, I'll just pick up a deal here, pick up a house here, whatever. There's a lot that goes into setting it up. There's a lot that goes into presumably operating it. It's not passive in any way. And I think there's a lot of people that think, oh, just set it up and it's a vacation rental or short-term rental. There's a lot that goes into it. So meaning it was a grueling, sounds like, couple of years that allowed you the freedom to now have really focus on the rentals, which, again, I'm assuming here, I'd love you to break down your exact experience, but I'm assuming that there's a lot less time and energy spent in running the short-term rental business as it was running, working your full-time job.
Yes. This is an interesting formula for some people. I think it like when some people might hear this and depending on their career, let's say they're an on-site nurse or a construction worker or whatever, right? They may scratch their head a little bit and go, I can't really relate. And I'll tell you, so in my case, I had a corporate job where I was working remotely and I can tell you how many conference calls I'm on speakerphone setting up tables in my units, right? And just doing what it takes. And I'm there 8 hours a day and I'm working. Now I got the job done. I took breaks where I needed to. I did emails and I took conference calls and I led my teams as necessary. But yeah, my life was living at the rentals or home with the family. So that's the onset of things. And so again, I bring up the nurse or maybe the construction worker going, well, how can I do that? And there's always time, right? Whether it's at night, that stinks, right? Because I'm basically admitting I was doing both. I had the luxury of being on a conference corporate job, getting paid and doing that balancing act, right? Where I'm working, but I'm also working. I'm double timing, right? And that's so my advice for anybody who's like, I can't do that. I physically need to be somewhere. I need to be working with a client or whatever is the unfortunate answer is it's going to be just a little bit harder because you're going to have friend time, social time, family time. It will have to be sacrificed. But I can say this because it's so critically important and I'm very passionate about this. You're right, that 24 months of grueling onset. And it's I want to grow bigger and we're growing bigger. So I'm never stopping. But if I just wanted $360,000 and I'm like, that's it, that's good. I'm good with that. We have set up as automated as you can get. Do I still get a couple of phone calls? Do I still have to deal with a couple of, emergencies, right? Hey, a tree fell. I got to coordinate a tree cutting company or plumbing or something. Absolutely. But I can tell you, you hear about all those quotes, whether it's Warren Buffett or just follow anybody that is a successful entrepreneur or businessman or woman. And it's, you got to make your money work for you, right? We've heard that many, many times, but when these things are set up and they're set up properly, and it does take a lot of effort, right? I think there's phases of maturity in your operations, your back office, but where I'm going with this is that I can't tell you how many times I'm in the middle of a dinner with friends or family now, or picking up my little daughter and we're playing. And I see on my little watch, I see an Airbnb request come in. It's automatically accepted. It's booked. My communication goes out automatically. The money's paid, the check-in information. Let's say it's even a same day booking, right? $750 for 2 nights or something. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm hanging out with my family, doing whatever. A booking comes in. Everything goes out from a messaging standpoint. The check-in information, they clearly see it because they don't reach back out. They check into the place. The weekend goes by. Let's say it's a Friday afternoon. Money gets deposited Monday morning. All the information, even the follow-up message, which seems very genuine, is all automated.
It's all automated. That's awesome.
It's all automated, right? And yes, like I said, there's occasions, but I can't count the number of times where it's so fluid. The guests, they get all the information they need. They check in, they stay. It's wonderful. Even the review is automated. They check out, we get paid. Then they give us a 5-star review saying we were the most amazing hosts ever. And I don't even, know their name.
And you didn't do anything, right?
I didn't do anything.
Yeah. There's a lot goes into setting that up, obviously.
Totally. But, it's never really easy, but you start to peel back the layers of work that allow you to honestly answer someone like yourself, Yona, and say, the passiveness is increasing. Don't get discouraged when your first weekend, and look, the first weekend of the second house we ever had, I'm not lying. A 4.5-foot snake was found hanging from the bathroom chandelier, right? So I'm thinking this business is awesome. And not only did I happen to have the coolest guests who happened to be from Florida, but they also, ironically, they were aligned with a wildlife savior fund or something. So the 19-year-old girl that was part of this gymnastics team that was staying knew how to handle snakes because she worked at some wildlife something or other in Florida, and they were cool with it. And I'm just saying, you're gonna get that crazy stuff, but 2.5 years later, for a $230,000 acquisition on a house, or 210, we might pull in 69, let's say, or something. That's just a simple example of a reasonable property. And I don't know how many people who would, after expenses, let's say we clear 41 or something, 42, 43. Who doesn't want a bonus coming in where you probably have to message them, maybe 62 messages in a 12-month period and maybe about 8 painful maintenance calls, right? Literally.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, that's just, it's intense. The amount of effort that goes in to setting them up. But I think it all comes back to all of us are in whatever business that we're in, because especially those of us who are, transitioning out or have transitioned out into full-time real estate, because there's a drive, there's a why, there's something that's pushing us that we want something more, and our corporate jobs were just not doing it for us. And so it doesn't really matter the amount of effort that we're willing to put in to get to that goal or that dream, because we see the end of the tracks. It's in the horizon, but it's there and we see it.
100%. You're building something. Yeah.
Can you elaborate, going back a little bit, talking about unpacking so much there? You mentioned there's a difference between what you call short-term rentals and vacation rentals. Can you elaborate what you mean by that?
Yes. So, and this, I'm just going to preface that a little bit with, Eddie, there are a couple industry, I'll call them gurus, or, kind of famous faces that have created Facebook groups and consulting services and all that stuff. And I don't hear this almost at all, not from anyone. I'm not saying I know them all, but I'm just putting this out there. Not that I don't love all their content, and I follow them, and maybe I sign up for their tools or their mastermind groups or things like that. But everybody's so focused on vacation rentals, right? And typically, as humans, it's related to vanity projects, right? Usually, right? Everybody wants the beach house. Everyone wants the amazing cabin house with the view. And absolutely, right. If that's going to make you, and we've had a $300,000 a year off of one house before that has a great view in the mountain house, right? And I hate that house. I hate that house so much, not because of any other reasons other than just maybe the types of guests or the problems we've had or whatever, right? So when I've chased vanity projects, it's not burned me. It's worked out. I just find that it's not the best experience sometimes. And I'm not saying, I'm not discouraging that. I'm not doing all that. My whole point of that is nobody seems to be talking about short-term rentals, which by and large, you can argue aren't they the same thing? And they are in terms of how you manage them and what you do and all those things. It's 3-night stays, 7-night stays, a month stay. the clientele base and the marketplaces that you would find the right house that most people would drive right by. They'd be like, okay, that looks like a nice house. I guess I'd live in it if I could afford it, or maybe that was a starter home. But I think people need to shift their focus on short-term rentals in terms of, hey, I have what's a marketplace that's growing outside of a B plus metropolitan city, not your LAs or your San Frans or maybe even your Atlantas, but maybe your Charlottes or your Indianapolises or Columbuses, Ohio, whatever, and do the surrounding areas. And essentially, are there nurses coming? Are there workers coming? Are there a lot of growth in house closings, right? Affordable housing. And I mean that in like a $300,000 home where it's a growth area. People have closings that are delayed all the time. It's 2 weeks. Are a lot of babies being born? Are millennials moving somewhere and having babies, and then you have the parents from the Northeast or the Southeast or wherever go visit them for 3 weeks or 10 days? Is it an underserved market? So short-term housing needs, and I can go on and on and on about all the different reasons, but you and I, we've probably been in our lifetimes needing short-term stays somewhere. But when you go to find an apartment up until probably 5 years ago, like, you have a 12-month lease.
Exactly. Right.
It's not furnished. Like, there's all these, I can't bring my own furnishings. I don't want to sign up for utilities. I only need it for, so I'm just saying short-term housing needs, you don't see a lot of people talking about it because it's hard to find the Pigeon Forges or the Nashvilles or the Whitefish Montanas or whatever that gives these, like, it's easy to understand you and I might want a vacation in the Catskills or Poconos or whatever, right? That makes sense to a lot of people. But like, if I flash a picture of a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in the middle of a town you never heard of, but it might be largish outside of a bigger metropolitan, but you're like, why would anyone go there? And that is always their question. Why would anyone go there? And they're thinking, by and large, investors, is it to vacation? And I could tell you, more people spend more money and more higher occupancy levels are from people just needing short-term stays for a variety of reasons than a vacation. And the second thing, I just want to throw this out there, Yona, and I'll let you ask me questions, is I can tell you, the clientele expectations of a very nice high-end luxury, I'll say luxury because I think those are ours in its truest sense of a short-term rental, a place to sleep that's comfortable and nice and inviting and different than where they live at home, but they're not on vacation. They're there to spend some time with family or just pick a thing I mentioned. Their expectations of what they spent for what they got is so much lower than I spent $12,000 for the week at the beach house. And man, if there is even a hint of dust, I'm calling you. If it's not 71 degrees, it's 72 degrees. I'm calling you. I'm upset. I'm telling you. And I've done both. And I've still invested in vacation rentals. We're doing some amazing things right now, which I'd love to share at some point with you when we're kind of getting done. We have a ranch in Texas. We have an 18-acre state in Banner, North Carolina, but that we're working on. But it's just such an easier clientele base to service. And I'll leave it at that.
Yes. So how does it differ in terms of the advertising of these units? Meaning, are you using the same platforms like Airbnb or VVRO or whatever, or are there totally different ways that you're finding these short-term tenants?
So a lot of my acquisitions lately have been kind of your backyard, that adage, the old adage, like in your backyard within like a 30, 50 mile radius. And speaking of growing teams, right? So whether I hire a VA to do some kind of field work or whatever, once I get through with some of these bigger developments, I want I forget what they call that, a bird dog or something, if you will. I guess that's what the wholesalers call it or something.
Skip tracer or something like that.
Skip tracer, something like that, where I actually would like to have a smaller arm, because take a step back. We eventually want to syndicate, my partner and I, my wife and I, and my business partner as well, his name is Mark. We want to syndicate. I think vacation rentals are awesome. I'm not against them. We're all in on them. I'm just saying, I bet you could do better. The ROI on picking up $1 million worth of 4 $250,000 homes in the right spots will get you way more of a return, and it'll be much easier to manage than $1 million vacation rental. I'll just say that. But how I'm doing that, yes, I would like a bird dogger or a skip tracer or something to start strategically looking at data for certain markets, and then start entering those markets. And that's what, again, just to take a step back real quick. That's why I'm saying a lot of the gurus, even people that are offering like data analytics services. So AirDNA is now the worst place to go for good data.
Oh, really?
It's in my opinion, it's excellent data. it has its place, but there are two services that I use and I've leveraged. It's called Rabu Insights Data Rabu. I know the CEO of him well. And then there's this new tool that my business partner signed up for. He seems to like it. I haven't invested much time in it yet. It's called STR Insights. And essentially those first of all, it's cheaper because AirDNA, you have to pay per county or this or zip code or whatever. And it gives you there's more variables to look at data to help you cross-reference comps that pulls in what you could potentially make with greater accuracy. But again, all usually related to vacation rental markets, not true short-term rentals. Rabu is actually the best one at pulling in all sorts of markets. They data scrape really well. But I'll stop there because I think, again, I'm not anti-vacation rentals. I just think you can have a business model for both.
But again, are you finding the tenants in the same way that you would find the vacation rental tenants, or is it like totally?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't
answer. Yes. No. Short answer to that is yes. Same platforms, everything. I think the hardest thing to incorporate for short-term rentals that you can do a better job of vacation rentals is something you may have heard about, like called direct bookings and leveraging the right marketing strategies for something like that. It's harder to do like the Charlottes of the world to get direct bookings because people are like, if I'm going to go Charlotte, I'm just going to go to Airbnb. To have my own website, which I do for direct bookings, it's just harder to get a word out there for someone who just needs a 4-night stay to visit a grandbaby. Like they're not thinking Poconos, they're not thinking Smokies, they're not thinking Miami. Right, where you could actually have a brand.
It seems like it would be useful to have a platform similar to Airbnb, specifically for that midterm or that short-term type clientele.
See, yeah, and I probably don't have a great, I guess, maybe take on that. I just would say like, I don't know if it's worth it to have anything different than an Airbnb or a Vrbo. Mm-hmm. Like they do their job pretty darn well.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear that. I guess I've never looked for a short-term rental per se, meaning I've used platforms for vacation rentals specifically. I think it's why a lot of people do use that, but you're saying you're getting the same type of clientele that you're looking for that are not looking to vacation per se in your rental. So it does make a difference. Maybe correct. Facebook ads or targeted ads and things like that probably work.
So there's some good theories on that. I have not had to explore that. You're absolutely right, Yona. Facebook ads apparently I'm hearing work really well. I'm not really an subject matter expert on that, and I haven't needed to use those yet. But that is, from what I understand, a good awesome. Method.
So tell me about, if you would, the short-term dojo, because you got that on your name here on the screen. I'm just curious what that is.
It's just a small brand around a community that I'm trying to spend some time creating a Facebook group. It's probably only about 50, 60 people, but it's related to martial arts. Martial arts is probably one of the greatest disciplines anyone could commit to, right? I'm not a martial artist myself, but I respect it greatly because we all have to be extremely disciplined to grow businesses, be entrepreneurs, action takers, all those things. And I just thought it was a cool little quick name I threw together a couple of years ago. I'm slowly kind of adding member by member. I don't want one of these big Facebook groups that's 20,000 members where, 90% of the members either don't participate or they're not engaged, or they ask, there's no silly questions, but they're generic things like, hey, a guest, won't check out and he's past the checkout time. What should I do? I'm not really looking to address things like that. There's plenty of free sites for that. This just happens to be a free site at the moment where I just want to meet really dedicated short-term rental people. I host 2 meetings a month and we just spend about an hour kind of going round robin. I bring in speakers, the typical kind of approach. So that's what that is. I also offer, that's kind of a brand where if people want to hire me to be a short-term rental consultant to work with them either one-on-one, I do that and kind of help them get started from the ground up. I spend about 30 days with someone as if you hire me directly. And then I also do hourly calls. If people want to walk through deals, if they think things, they just have questions, I do that as well. So those are the 2 ways that people can kind of engage and hire me directly. But that Facebook group is just kind of for anybody who's committed and really wants to grow and participate. That's just a free Facebook group.
It's good. We all need resources, and especially in a community, people starting a new job, a new career, really, we need to have that community and have those people in the similar mindset and similar growth stage that we're in to be able to bounce these ideas off. So appreciate that.
Correct. I agree.
So I want to transition now because time does fly. I mean, I don't know how it happened over here. What we call the final 4, Jonathan. First question to you is, what's the worst job that you ever had?
Yeah, I can't. So it's either a telemarketer or working at Brugger's Bagels. I don't know if you ever heard of that place. So just think of any like chain, national bagel chain. I'll pick that one just because. And I got fired from that. I got fired from a lot of jobs. I think I was always destined to be an entrepreneur. But anyway, so Brugger's Bagels was just pick a bagel place that you might have heard of. That's kind of a chain. And I remember I had to wear a suit by the side of the road. It was like 94 degrees. And the guys at the side of the road in a funny costume and wave, try to get people in. And I was there. And then, so the only reason I was sent to do that is because I basically, I couldn't wash dishes properly. I couldn't cut bagels properly. Apparently my boss just didn't, I sucked. I really am not a great employee. But anyway, so he sent me out there. And then after that, I was like, this is horrible. So I quit. I was 16, I had to go through it kind of thing, but that was the worst job I ever had. But it was
almost
learning.
like he didn't want to fire you, but wanted to have you quit on your own. Gave you the worst job possible.
Totally, Yona. Somebody had to do it. And he's figuring maybe this guy will leave after this. And I did.
That's so cool. That's a funny story. Well, I think we all have those experiences when we're young, and learning experience at that. What's a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
Yeah, so there's a couple, and I hate using this example because everybody probably says this, or probably 50% of people, but I have to go with it for now, just because, this is about real estate and making money and entrepreneurship. If this was like a mindset podcast or something different, I'd go with something different. But The Cash Flow Quadrant, by Robert Kiyosaki, I hate to be cliche, but if you don't read that book, and whether you're unemployed or you're a spinal surgeon making $1.6 million a year, maybe more, you can't read that book and not understand that there are 4 categories that you can fall in on how you earn a living, and what that living that you've chosen to do in terms of what box you fall in dictates what you should do next based on any hopes or dreams or any sort of lifestyle you want to live in the future that you want to make a change in. And if you don't know what it takes after that, or at least what it's going to require of you and where you fall, you can't write it any simpler than that. Mm-hmm. So I hate using that example, but it's so strong and so simple to understand.
100%. It is cliche, but it is one of the best books out there in terms of changing mindset for people. And it's been mentioned so many times, both the Rich Dad Poor Dad and the Cash Flow Quadrant, that guys, if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't yet checked those books out, I don't know what's going on, but check it out. Okay. Maybe you just never made it to the end of the podcast, never listened to that. But the books, we're going to put them in the show notes for you guys to check that out. And third question, what's a skill or talent that you would like to learn? And this could be anything.
Yeah. So I'll just throw 2 quick ones. One, I want to play the piano. I'm not a musician. I'm not even a huge music guy, but I think the piano is the most beautiful instrument ever created, and has it just provides such an amazing experience. Listening to good piano. I can listen to like a Spotify piano channel for 12 hours. But again, I hope one day I can kind of commit to that and do it. But so that's a random one. I would love to do that. But from a business standpoint, I'm terrible at sales. Not because I don't think I'd be good or I'm engaging or I have charisma or all these things. I've just never spent time to learn sales. And I know that it takes a commitment. And sales, I never want to be considered a salesman for obvious reasons. It comes with a rough stigma, but it's so critically important. And I would love, and I don't even know if this is possible, to have it as much of an authentic and genuine salesmanship skill level versus I tricked you into giving me your money sales. And I don't know anything about sales, but I would imagine there's got to be 2 tracks. One that probably makes you less money, but you have a better brand at the end of the day. I want to do that. Yeah, no. And I would argue that to the contrary, that having a good brand and selling in a way that you're not really selling, you are really just helping people and being a good educator in a lot of ways and looking out for someone's best interests can actually make you much more money than trying to be a salesman tricky. And we had on this podcast, Dale Dupree, who is the founder of the Sales Rebellion, and highly recommend you check that guy out. Recent podcast, probably in the last couple of months. So you can check out that episode, but check out the Sales Rebellion. That's his platform, and just changing the stigma of salespeople and doing it in a totally different way. And so I think that's something that anyone can learn from. But I totally agree with you. And I think there's many versions of what sales looks like, but every single person in this world, no matter what you do, is in sales one way or the other. So the question is just how if we're a little kid and we're trying to, convince our mother to give us an ice cream, like that's where, right.
You got to do it,
Sales.
but you can do it in the right way or in in a different way that can make you stand out. So good, great piano and sales. Great choices there. Fourth and final question, Jonathan, what does success mean to you?
Yeah. So I'm not going to lie. Like, I think early on in my life, which many of us might fall in that boat for many reasons that I won't go into now, and kind of my upbringing, money was always success to me. Like, if I had lots of money, it wasn't necessarily stuff. Like, I didn't need Lamborghinis and Rolexes. It wasn't that, but just a lot of money. Like, that just always, I would feel like a successful individual. Naturally, as I got older, that's changed. I obviously still want to make money. I have a quote that I say that, like, I love money for one reason. And that one reason is because I hate money. And I hate money because of numerous reasons, which I won't go down here, but things, not having enough money causes problems and issues. And I can go on and on, but so money's super important to want to grow and earn and make more of. But the success, now it's more about financial freedom and really time management. Time, obviously, that's really the most valuable and precious resource we have. And I'm now trying to build an intentional life. And I'm so grateful to be alive in 2022, where this thing right here, and then you and I, right, we could be anywhere, and the internet and all that. You really do have a much easier time to create an intentional life where and how you make a living, so that you can have your time back to spend time with family and just be someone who provides an experience for others to allow them to grow in whatever way they want to grow as well, and be like a beacon of knowledge and hope and inspiration. And
it is inspiring, and it's awesome to see someone like you doing what you're doing and accomplishing what you've accomplished. And it's an inspiration for a lot of other people, including myself, because the short-term rental space has a lot of there's a lot of hype, but I don't know that there are so many people doing it right and doing it in the right way, especially with the right attitude. So it's been a pleasure, getting to know kind of your approach and what you've put into your business and how you're going forward. I wish you much continued success along those lines. And last but not least, how can our listeners find you or reach out to you?
Yeah, the quickest way is just a self-branded website, jonathanpacilio.com. You can just go there and you can either find my free Facebook group or a couple of different links to maybe a YouTube channel, which again, need to put more time in. So you can find me there, and then you can find any way, like if you truly want to kind of engage me, you can find a way off of that site as well. But if I could just throw one thing, I really do. This is I strongly encourage, and I follow all sorts of asset classes in the real estate space. I strongly encourage, it's kind of like a one home project that I want to instill in people, that to pick up the right short-term rental, even just one of them in your business portfolio, is monetarily life-changing, from everything from a single mom to someone who makes high six figures and wants to start creating steps to exit. I've never seen anything that can return business type revenue without the business type expenses. Additionally, with all the things that someone like yourself can do with cost segs and tax strategists can implement and all that. If you want something that is much quicker to be life-changing, I just check out short-term rentals. If you want to do it, commit to doing it right, and the money will be there so that it gives you options. And even if you don't want to do any more after one, that additive monetarily to your portfolio, I've never seen anything provide that much of a boost that quickly.
Absolutely. And I've seen the same. So great final words to leave off of. And that really should be right at the beginning. So maybe our editors can use that as the soundbite to put right at the beginning of the show, because it's incredible piece of advice. So thank you for that. And thank you again for taking the time out today and joining us.
Thanks, Yona. I appreciate your time and the opportunity to speak.
Yeah. And to our listeners, thank you guys for listening once again, all the way to the end. Remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.